up guys, welcome back to my channel. From the title you can tell that today's video is an April wrap-up. Thank the heavens, it was a good reading month this month. I've had some not so great reading months this year, but April was a really good one. It was an audiobook heavy month, which I wasn't expecting. There was a lot of stuff on Libby that was like readily available. I didn't have to wait, there wasn't a hold, so I ended up reading like 4 or 5 audiobooks this month, or listening to 4 or 5 audiobooks this month. So I only have 2 physical ones to show you. But yes, let's just get right into it because I have a lot of good stuff to talk about. So I'm just gonna start in chronological order, and the first one that I read was My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. I have never heard a bad review of this book. I've never read one, I've never seen one. Everybody always gives it at least 4.5 out of 5 stars, if not 5 stars. For me, it was a 5-star read. It's so simple, the concept, like you almost wouldn't think an author could write, how long is it? Almost 300 pages about somebody who just wants to sleep through a year of their life, but she does it, and she does it really well. So if you don't know what this one's about, it follows an unnamed narrator, and she lives in Manhattan. She's very well off. She lives on the Upper East Side, like everything should be amazing, right? But something's off. So she finds a not so reputable psychiatrist who's willing to prescribe her any and all sorts of medications so that she can essentially sleep through the next year of her life. One of my favorite quotes, you guys know I like to read from my little book journal, my little annotating journal. One of my favorite quotes when she talks about when she does have to go outside and like venture out, because she'll get like a coffee and different things from some of the bodegas that are near her apartment. She says, "Walking up First Avenue, everything made me cringe. I was like a baby being born. The air hurt, the light hurt. The details of the world seemed garish and hostile. I relied on alcohol only on the days of these excursions, a shot of vodka before I went out, pretending to live a life." Basically, she thinks if she gets enough sleep, she's gonna be reborn, like a new person. She's just gonna wake up and know exactly what she's meant to be doing with her life. And I feel like we all kind of have thoughts like that, not necessarily that we should sleep for a year, but that, you know, if we just go on this diet, or if we go to this country and have this travel experience, or if we could just date that person that we really admire, or be this kind of person, that we ourselves will become a different person. So it's an interesting kind of twist, I think, on that concept, and I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of talk about the way she was raised, you know, the type of household that she was raised in by her very wealthy but not so loving parents. She's got not the best relationship with her current boyfriend, not the best friendship with her best friend Riva. So there's definitely a lot of conversations about relationships and how she relates to not just the people she loves, but society as a whole. So definitely a very poignant novel, very timely for the age that we're living in, where mental health is kind of at the forefront of national conversation now. It's something that we're all very aware of, and this book just dives right into it head first. I feel like that's why everybody's been giving it such glowing reviews, is because it's so relatable right now. I kind of felt like the author maybe wrote this as sort of a love letter to anybody going through something similar, being very sad, kind of feeling lost in life or depressed, and wanting them to know that, you know, life is worth living and you can go on. So yes, worth the hype. All right, next up I listened to When Women Ruled the World by Kara Cooney. This is an audiobook that came out in 2018. It is a very well-researched nonfiction book about the 6 major queens of ancient Egypt. They were actually referred to as kings at the time, which is really interesting. So I borrowed this one off of Libby because I'm obsessed with those mummy movies that came out in like the early 2000s, but that's the extent of my like ancient Egyptian knowledge, which basically means I know nothing because those were just like movies. But I'm fascinated by the culture and the way that they used to track their lineage through the mother's line. It was definitely more of a matriarchal society, which is obviously quite different than what we have nowadays, and very fascinating for sure. The author did a really good job of kind of pulling from like references from modern day politics. so that we as the reader could kind of understand the political dynamics that were happening. So she mentions Hillary Clinton, she mentions a couple of other kind of major female political figures, so that we can kind of wrap our modern brains around kind of what was going on at the time. There's also a lot of commentary on gender and like gender politics, and how if you are a woman, you can't really show any sort of extreme emotion, any greediness for power, and expect to be raised up to any important position, because people will criticize you to the point of you eventually just kind of backing down. One of my favorite quotes, she said, "Women must veil their power grabs in a warm and cuddly swath of non-aggression and non-threatening verbiage, dazzling smiles, colored hair, in a calm and steady gaze. Maternal even, without holding their head too high but not too low either. Is it any surprise that today's women don't even apply for political positions of authority if they have to walk through a gauntlet of abuse dissecting their appearance, demeanor, age, weight, and sexual past, while simultaneously walking a tightrope of unspoken demands for masculinization?" I mean, that quote says so much. I feel like she sums up, she has a really good way of like wording things and summing these big concepts up and kind of boiling them down into something that's kind of quite bite-sized and accessible. Yes, so if you're interested in like feminism, even if you're not necessarily interested in ancient Egyptian culture, it's still really fascinating because of the amount of references that she's pulling in from modern society. So I think I gave that one, I gave it a 4 out of 5. Really good. Next up was one that I was not as obsessed with. I read Topics of Conversation by Miranda Popke, or I listened to it. This was another audiobook. The thing she does really well that I enjoyed the most, the sort of highlight, was the conversation, the dialogue, basically. I mean, the dialogue is obviously really important in a book that has the word conversation in the title. She does realistic dialogue very well. All of those like false starts and things that we cut out of our YouTube videos where we kind of cut off mid-sentence and then we have to like rethink what I'm gonna say, all of that is put into her character's dialogue. Obviously we don't necessarily think in like clear lines. It's our brains kind of hop around, or at least mine does. I kind of hop around to different topics and I can be really scatterbrained sometimes. It's hard to kind of, especially nowadays with our phones and social media, it's kind of hard to focus on one thought at a time. And she does a really good job of writing that in a realistic way. However, you're kind of barely hanging on to this tiny little thread of plot through to the end because there's so many time jumps. It was not a plot-driven book whatsoever. I'm not the biggest fan of books like that. I much prefer a more clear plot. So for that reason, I gave it a 3 out of 5. It is well written though, so there's that. Next was a DNF. So I don't know. I was about to say it's not poorly written, but it really kind of was. It was The Circle by Dave Eggers. I had really high hopes for this because I love a good like dystopic science fiction type book, like 1984. I always mention that as my favorite book. I didn't like this one. May, the main character, she really is just sort of a sponge that is just easily brainwashed into everything that The Circle has to say. And so you kind of sit there like she's just completely apathetic to everything and like doesn't really get it. I don't know, it was just she didn't really have any flavor to her, so she's not a strong female character. I feel like it's 2022, we should be able to write strong female characters. However, this was written in 2013 and I think that's the main issue that I have with it. All of the things that are brought up in the story that are supposed to like cause us to be so angered, I guess, as readers about technology and privacy, or rather our lack thereof, all of those issues, we're so used to them now. Like we just assume that whenever we post anything online or whenever we film anything with our cameras or whatever, it's probably being watched, it's being monitored, whatever the cloud is, wherever all our stuff goes, like somebody has access to that. Like the government definitely has access to all of that if they needed if they needed it. So all of those issues about privacy just sort of seemed kind of moot, because it's like, we don't have any privacy anymore and it's probably only going to get worse, and we've just kind of accepted it. So he's kind of warning us. It's almost like a cautionary tale, and he's warning us against all of this stuff that we kind of have all just accepted as a society. So it felt a little bit outdated. I made it like 2/3 of the way through the audiobook. I remember looking at my percentage and it was like 66, 67%, something like that. But I just couldn't do it. I couldn't finish it. I was like, and it was right before the twist too, because I ended up reading a spoilery review and they told me what happened. And it was a decent twist, so it does have a little bit of a twist, but the scenes felt like they took ages to get through. I was like wanting to, you know, I would like click there's like a fast forward, like 15 seconds button, you know, on Libby, and I was like tapping that just to try to get through the end of whatever they were talking about. It was like the characters would talk in circles. I DNF'd it. However, I know that there's a sequel called The Every, and I might give that a shot in May because I think it's different. I don't think it follows May. I think it follows a different character. So we'll see how I get on with that in May. Next up was The Idiot by Elif Batuman. This was a finalist for the Pulitzer, which is very impressive considering I wasn't really that obsessed with it. I was really expecting to like this one, truly. People say it's like super funny. GQ, there's a quote on the back that says, easily the funniest book I've read this year. I think a lot of the humor, it just kind of fell flat for me. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just not into like funny books, or like, because I don't ever read like comedy type books. I just didn't find it all that funny. There were a few things that were kind of like silly, like situations that the main character Celine gets herself into. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe some of it just went over my head. I'm not sure. But basically this follows Celine. She's the daughter of Turkish immigrants and she's spending her freshman year at Harvard. So it follows her throughout her freshman year. It's 1995. Email is like a new thing, and so she ends up falling for Ivan, who's a mathematics student at Harvard. I think another reason why I didn't enjoy it was because their connection is so stilted and it just didn't feel very genuine from the beginning. Like, she's definitely more into him than he is of her. Like, so much of the plot focuses on their potential romance, but I feel like it can't be categorized as a romance because it's really not. I don't know, it just felt a little bit uneventful, which is odd because so much of the plot is about the two of them and like their potential romance and their emails back and forth. Like I said, it just kind of fell a little flat for me. I think I gave it like a 3.5 out of 5. They do end up in Budapest at one point in time, which is really cool. I made sort of a promise to myself that this summer I'm going to try to read more books set in European countries. I think that'll be really fun and kind of different. So it's basically just one of those books where the main character is just kind of getting to know their self and figuring out what they want to do. On the back, on the blurb, it says, "The Idiot is a heroic yet self-effacing reckoning with the terror and joy of becoming a person in a world that is as intoxicating as it is disquieting." So this idea of figuring out who you are and what you want to do and who you want to be and all of that. So if you're interested in that first year of college and not really knowing what you want to do and that sort of excitement and liking someone kind of from afar and that whole like, you know, are they gonna get together, are they not, then this might be for you. It wasn't really for me though. Next up was my favorite book of maybe the year so far, and that's Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. So good, instant 5 out of 5. I knew it was gonna be. Her story really has some parallels to my life right now going on with everything, which I'm like kind of still processing, so it kind of hit home in a really unexpected way. So this is a memoir. More specifically, it's considered a culinary biography because she talks so much about food. This book is gonna make your mouth water and it's gonna make your eyes water from tears because it's very sad. So if you don't know the plot, it follows Michelle and her journey with her mom, taking care of her mom as she battles with stage 4 cancer, and kind of learning things about herself, feeling like she's kind of losing her identity. So she's Korean American. She wasn't born in Korea, she was born in America. But that Korean part of herself, she feels like she's kind of losing it because there's so much that she realizes she doesn't know. There's like so many Korean dishes that she grew up on and loves but doesn't know how to make. And so hence the title, Crying in H Mart, because she like doesn't know, she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know what ingredients to buy. So definitely a memoir about food, culture, like how that's all tied up in like family tradition and culture and all of that lovely stuff. It's really well written, and she talks very candidly about everything that her mom went through, physically, emotionally, while she was going through treatment. I have quite a few quotes on this one. I've got a whole, like several pages on it, which is not super common. I have to really like a book in order for there to be like multiple pages written about it. This is a really good, this one's a little bit more sad and kind of dark, but this is a really good quote. It's one that I was just able to visualize so well in my mind. She says when her sores got so bad, sores inside her mouth from treatment, I think, that she couldn't swallow her painkillers, I crushed Vicodin with the back of a spoon and scattered the bright blue crumbs over scoops of ice cream like narcotic sprinkles. Our table, once beautiful and unique, became a battleground of protein powders and glorified gruel. So she talks about how her mom lost her appetite, and it was a struggle to get her fed every day to get, you know, up to that 2,000 calorie minimum. I genuinely, like, it makes me like want to write my own memoir or something. I don't even know what I would write about, but she kind of inspires me. I don't know what it is, and she's so just cool. Like, I recently started following her on Instagram, and she's into music. She's in a band called Japanese Breakfast, and she's just so cool. She's just such a cool human. So I don't know, she's really inspiring, and it's a very, very good book. All right, last up, another memoir is In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. Again, this is one of those books that literally never gets a bad review. Like, it's very well written. It's very cleverly structured. I will say, before I go any further, trigger warnings for sexual content, domestic abuse, verbal abuse. It is pretty intense. Yep, it is very much like a book for adults only. So be aware of that if you decide to dive in. But basically it is just a commentary on the female body, you know, friendships, relationships. She is a member of the LGBTQ community, and the main relationship that she talks about in the book is one she had with like an ex-girlfriend. She gets very honest and very candid. It is a very intimate portrait of their relationship. This was a quote that I really liked to kind of explain how she felt emotionally during those times. She said, "In those months, hazy from lack of sleep and raw with anxiety, I felt like a calculator with someone's finger over the solar panel, fading in and out, threatening to shut off altogether." So this one is kind of dark, be aware of that. But if you've read her short story collection, Her Body and Other Parties, which I think I have somewhere, it's kind of similar in vibes to that. You know, she gets very real and very raw and very dark. It's definitely for like the literary person. Like, as someone with like an English degree, I can really appreciate her writing. It's like that kind of writing that almost borders on like pretentiousness, but only because it's so good. So yes, highly recommend that one. Those were the however many books, 6, 7 books that I read in April. Tell me below what you guys read and what you recommend. Please let me know, especially if you have recommendations for like I said earlier, books that take place like in European countries. So like Italy and Paris and or like the Mediterranean, that would be fun too. So if you have any recommendations for that, leave them below, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye. You gonna help me?